What lessons have travel taught you?
That really all you have is your health and your relationships, and that everything else can be bought or replaced or purchased wherever you are.
Three, two, one, yeah!
After leaving the corporate 9 to 5 grind, I became the boss of my own spiritual business, helping others explore and navigate the human experience from insight, wisdom, and lessons learned along the way. Today, I help aspiring spiritual entrepreneurs gain the confidence to share their gifts with the world. Welcome to the Happy Healing Shop podcast. I'm your host, Trang Pham Nguyen, and each week we'll dive into incredible stories of strength, resilience, and transformation. So, if you are ready for some serious breakthroughs, laughs and tears, and stories that will inspire you, you are in the right place, my friend. Let's get started. My next guest, Leah Arao, also known as LA in Flight, is a travel content creator and co-host of Ticket to Anywhere podcast, a visual podcast on travel essentials from the gear, tips and tricks to help you live a fulfilled travel life. She's a self-proclaimed bougie backpacker who lives for slow travel and community immersion, fueled by finding the coolest views and best places to have coffee in each place visited. Having previously settled in Las Vegas, all over South America, and in Melbourne, Australia, Leah now uses her hometown of Los Angeles as a jump off point to work and explore the globe. Please welcome my guest, Leah Arao. Hey, welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you so much, Trang. It's so good to see you, and I'm so excited to be here.
I know we can talk for hours on travel, and we met through a travel group,
Yes.
and then we just connected ever since then and had like meetups and stuff like that. So when you got started, do you consider, first of all, yourself a solo female traveler for the most part?
I am, yes. And I don't believe that you have to fulfill every part of that word 100% 24/7 in order to identify and call yourself a solo female traveler. You don't have to be a digital nomad who's sold everything to go live in a van on the east coast of Australia to call yourself a solo female traveler. There's many, many variations of it.
Yeah. So how did you get started with your travel journey? You know, what prompted it? There's always that first
Yeah.
word that kind of changed your perspective. And some people say it changed my life.
Right. I'm gonna tell you about the first journey and then then another journey that probably changed my life. So I grew up traveling. On my podcast, I have an episode of how much I traveled when I was younger. It's one of our earlier episodes, but it was a lot domestic trips with my family. So my first real big trip, I would say, was post university. I was 23 years old. I had gone on an EF college break trip to the Greek Isles, like island hopping in Greece. EF college break is now called EF Ultimate Break, and they're run a little bit differently now, but they still do group tours. And I was going on my own, but I was going with 25 other people that I had never met before. And I thought, if I want to start traveling, this is a great way to get started. Like, go join a group that I know I'll probably befriend at least one person, but also at the same time, I don't know anyone here. So I loved being able to graduate from college, throw myself into this new adventure of 3 weeks island hopping in Greece. And it turned out to be absolutely incredible. My life definitely was changed a bit from there. But I think when I really, really started, um, thinking of doing things differently. Right after that Greek trip, I started working corporate 9 to 5 for like 5 years. And then I went to Nicaragua New Year's Eve 2014 going into 2015 with a buddy. We were there for like 10 days. And during that trip, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to backpack. And then I was like, you know what? I think I want to leave my job and just start backpacking around like South America because I was a Spanish minor in college. And of course, in college, I didn't really use it, but I was like, well, throwing myself into these countries, I'll really be using it. And in Nicaragua, I was using it, as much as I could. And it was during that 10-day trip, I really started considering it. And I was like, well, why don't I take all of 2015 to think about it, to prep and, get ready to do this. So that was a life-changing trip because that was the trip that set everything off. I was like, I think when I get home, I'm going to start changing things. And I was living in Las Vegas at the time. And so about 10 months goes by, my job said, hey, we're actually eliminating your department. And I was like, if this isn't my sign that I should be backpacking South America next year in 2016, then I don't know what is. So it was like all the stars really, really aligned. And then I went on a huge trip. I went backpacking through the continent of South America in 2016. And that was when like the physical and mental and emotional change was really happening was throughout that year.
Yeah, when you said everything being set off, or it's kind of like the gears in your head start moving.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of those stories. And for me, it was when I met in college, this is back in 2011 or 2012, these international exchange students. And there were two British people and one girl from Spain. And that's where I saw them travel to my school. And they were, I think it made me go like, okay, because travel back then wasn't like cool thing to do. It's still kind of like safety.
Right. And the
like,
internet wasn't that big. So like we didn't have all the information we do now.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. And it wasn't a thing yet to travel and like, around the world for months and stuff like that. And I remember thinking just kind of, I guess this is how people inspire each other, right? You see that someone can do it and you go like, hey, they're my age, they're able to do it on their own. And so I think I can do it as well.
Mhm.
And it helps the fact when they're like, when you come visit us, stay at our place. So you kind of have like a base ground or a base camp to
Yeah.
kind of go to. But I think for me, that first like travel 3-month trip in Europe was what made me start to see things differently and go like, oh
Oh,
wow, there's more to this
there's
life, or
more to it. Yeah.
there's more outside of my own country, right? And then
Yeah.
gears start shifting for me as well. And
Yeah.
so that's why when people say like, oh my gosh, how did, like, someone listening in might think like, how could you think about quitting your job? But I
Mm.
think when you're in a
I was
different
thinking about it for years. I was
Yeah,
like, it
right.
was a
It's like
long
when
time
someone
coming.
exactly when someone's like about to quit their job or like split from a relationship, it's not like they wake up one day to do it. It's
No,
kind of like a build up,
it's
right?
been going on 100%,
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. So it's funny because yeah, I think like in a way, when we travel or we're away from home in a different environment, we're able to get more quiet and
Mhm.
start being more reflective about what we want, what things back home didn't work for us anymore.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes we need that. Some people might say, like, I can do that meditation, but I think I find it for me if I'm physically away and
Removed. Yep.
moved exactly, and then I can start thinking clearly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um yeah, sometimes you just need to be away from the people, the distractions, the noise, the physical place, like a total reset somewhere else, a total different time zone, different season, so many things, even like the allergens in the air,
Yep,
you
exactly.
know?
Or the people in your city or the energy
Mhm.
that you're living in or the
Yeah. Like
so I think
a town that uses like cars versus a town that uses public transportation. It just there's so many factors.
it's a different pace. I find like in
Mhm.
different countries, they have different paces on how fast they go. So
Yeah.
that's why people, I feel like when they go on vacation, they go to somewhere it might be slower or it might be more invigorating because they're looking for that, maybe
Right.
a change of scenery, right? I would say also people don't really talk a lot about this, but
Mhm.
there's a lot that I think people like you and I and others had to overcome in terms of adversity when we wanted to travel, especially the
Yeah.
first couple of trips, right? What are some things or some scripts people have told you when you were like, hey, I'm going to quit my job and go?
So many things. And some of them still stick with me through this day. Some of them still sting, but they sting a little less because it's been what? It's been almost 9 years, since I started being like, all right, I think I'm gonna take off by. um so 2015, when I started to think about like getting the gears in motion, I actually wanted to prep my parents so that I invited to I value their opinion. And even though I was like mid 20s, late 20s at my time, I was like, I want their support and them to know that I'm doing this responsibly. Right. So I brought them out to Vegas, like took them to dinner, and then I like gave them a PowerPoint presentation on what I'm doing later that year. I was like, I want to head to South America. And so it was kind of like greasing the wheels type things and, telling them, hey, but I need to leave. I want to leave my job and do this. I don't want to work in advertising forever. You know, I'm ready to like use my Spanish. I'm ready to close this chapter in Vegas. I'm ready to get out of here. And like, they were just like blank stares. They were like, what? Because it's my mom and stepdad. My mom's an immigrant. My stepdad was born here. But my mom, she probably had that immigrant mentality of, I came all the way to America to give you a better life. And now you're literally going to leave and go do whatever. Like, she didn't say that out loud, but I could just tell that was like running through her head. Right. And so, they questioned me for months and months, but I told them like 9 months early. So I prepped them for 9 months and like kept them in the loop about my progress and my thoughts and what I was doing to prep even,
That's
like
so
what
generous.
kind of
I gave my parents
it
like
was
1 month.
yeah, it was very generous because I wanted their support too. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of
Like I
course.
wanted them
Same.
to see that I was working on a plan and a backup plan if I needed it, and that I was being responsible about it. So I feel like breaking that news and then getting their support again, that like you have to build that timeline of trust. They already trusted me, but it was a whole different adventure.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyways, so told them first and then started telling people kind of like quietly, like, here and there, mentors, guys I was dating, thinking like, hey, I'm going, I think I'm going to do this. And people were like, one of my mentors here in LA, she's like, do it while you're young. I was 27 at the time. So I wasn't like, I didn't feel that young. I wasn't 22, but at the same time, I wasn't like, in my 40s. So, and I had been working in corporate for 5 years already. So I had a good chunk of professional experience behind me. And she's like, do it while you're young. I think it's great. Let's see what this opens for you. And then one guy I was dating during that year, he literally said, and now I was thinking about this on the way to this interview with you, Trang. I was like, oh my God, that was projection. He literally was like, don't do it. That's the worst idea. And you're going to ruin your life and your career doing this. And I was, and he was a successful he was actually my dentist at the time. Don't worry, we did not violate any HIPAA. There was no like HIPAA violations. We completely started talking through like Yelp. That's a whole other wild story. Like he didn't look up my number, nothing. Because we didn't violate any HIPAA laws or anything like that. But he was a successful dentist with like a practice in Vegas, and I knew he wanted like a family and kids and marriage, and he owned property, and I was like nowhere near that kind of stuff. And I knew he was like looking to marry, and I wasn't like there yet, and I didn't really feel it with him. And so looking back on it now, I was like, everything in retrospect is 2020. Everything in hindsight is 2020, right? I was like, oh my God, he was projecting onto me, like thinking, oh, your career is going to be ruined if you do this, where he probably already, had some of those thoughts of like, is this happening to, him at the time? But people said all kinds of wild things, like even starting the podcast, the travel podcast at the time we did right before the pandemic, people had thoughts about that. They're like, wow, what a time to start a podcast, right? Like, what a crappy topic. And there was just so much more. For such a positive thing, I felt like there was so much more negativity when I actually told people I was going to do things than the type of support that I hear other people getting, or the type of support that you expect from your inner circle that I did not get.
Yeah, I think that's something that it really does frustrate me, because it's anything with, if you start your own business, if you start your own podcast, any type of project, that it's kind of like if you start any personal projects, it seems like people always have something negative to say. But if you're working,
what is that? Is that jealousy? Like, I can't
I had
attribute it to anything else. I was like, why? What's the point?
I had a friend saying like, oh, maybe so-and-so was jealous of you for wanting to go. And I think really what it is like the projection of fear. I think people do mean well when but I think they're coming from a very limited mindset instead of a broad, open perspective, right? So, even like my business, the mistake I made was telling people about it in the beginning.
Right.
I was talking to people that were not entrepreneurs. And there were people that are more, they seek the stability, kind of probably maybe like your dentist friend, where it's like it's like a certain mindset and also a level of comfort. And so when you talk to other people that I've been told like you're going to ruin your career. So that friend was my friend. And it's funny because the tables have turned. You're like, now people are saying, how do you travel so much and all that kind of
Right.
stuff, you know?
You're like,
'Cause
oh, weren't you the person 5 years ago that told me I was going to ruin my career and now you want my lifestyle?
yeah, that's why I'd
Right.
say anyone listening in, like if someone has like some lofty ideas and stuff, do not shoot it down unless it's harming other people,
Right.
because you never know
Right.
where it's
You
gonna
never know.
end. I will say this, I will always remember the people that did not support me in the beginning.
100%.
Yeah, and the ones that
Well,
did.
it is sad because every negative comment that those are the ones that I took with me. All the positive stuff for some reason, I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Thank you." Like, great, but I filed it away. But I know
Yeah.
exactly every single person that said anything negative about me starting the podcast or me traveling, because I think it cuts a little deeper too. And it's like, wow,
Oh,
I didn't realize, like, a quote unquote friend, or even I've had family members say things in my extended family say, I was like, wow, I didn't know that instead of supporting, you would just use words to like slice my heart open.
yeah, it's
You
also one of those
know?
things. Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where years later, like you don't want to say it, but in your head you're like, I told you so.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm ready for that day.
And I think like I get when someone goes like, "Oh, isn't it dangerous?" But I think there's sometimes where
Right.
people kind of go a little bit further than that. They say like, "Why are you going to Mexico? It's
Mm-hmm.
dangerous." And I
Mm-hmm.
remember talking to someone in Mexico, a local in Mexico, saying like, "How do you feel about people that say that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are you going to Mexico? It's dangerous, or like you shouldn't go there." And I loved what he said. He said, "I don't really care because the people that say that have never been here."
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
And so then after that, I just thought to myself, thinking like, I mean, the best people to ask about a country you're about to go to are the ones that have just been there,
Yeah.
because
Just
they
been
have the most
there.
recent news, not distorted news from the media, or
Mm-hmm.
because the news, they have to make money, right? So they're gonna give the showy, the most like things that will catch people's attention. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
say, look at these people traveling and having fun. So I think a lot of people are scared of us traveling sometimes because they think, there's danger here. There's danger everywhere, even in the US. You
100%.
know,
Lots of
like in
danger.
international people are always scared coming here because they're like, doesn't everyone have guns and there's mass shootings? And you're like,
Oh,
there are mass
that's so
shootings, unfortunately.
sad.
But it just shows how distorted things are, especially if they haven't been to a country, right?
Right. Right.
So, and I feel like when I traveled alone and got time to reflect, a lot of time to reflect, especially when you have long bus rides and those
Oh
long
my
train
God.
rides or
All you're
plane
doing is
rides.
thinking.
Yeah, that you're doing thinking, listening music, or
Yeah.
passing out, right? But I feel like that's when I start questioning my values in
Hmm.
I wanted, what I start to believe in at that
Mm-hmm.
point. Whether it's and that's not necessarily politics, but more so of just how countries are run, culture, what things I like about, what
Yeah.
things I like to pull from different countries and bring into my life,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so when okay, so what do you think is the hardest part about travel? Like for me, I would say getting started. That first trip, I had so much fear. Even though I was taking a flight to the UK, which is a place that speaks English and everything.
Right,
And
right.
then
No
and I was
language
also
barrier.
exactly.
Mhm.
Also, I think the day you travel, the day you have to catch that taxi or Uber,
Yep.
or back then there was no Uber, right? Or even trying to catch the plane or train on time. I think those are probably the hardest parts for me for
Mhm.
traveling, because they're exhausting and you have to make sure you don't miss it.
They are.
Um, but once you get there, I feel like it's fine.
Yeah,
What about you?
100%. Um, I've noticed now, this is kind of sad. In the past like 5 years or so, I get a lot of anxiety the night and the day before I leave for a trip. And I'm like expert traveler at this point, but I still can't sleep. I can't sleep. And I I end up like staying up late, staying up all night, being extra tired for whatever journey is to follow that next day or later that day. And I just overthink because I think, I've gotten my packing down to like, how can I be functional and bring the comforts of home while still not overpacking? I kind of think of things like, am I bringing enough? Do I have everything I need? Um, do I have everything I need for safety? Do I have all the documents I need? If I promise something to someone where I was going, do I have that for them? So I think it's just making sure that I'm just like set to go. And yeah, making sure I'm timely as well, because you never know what's gonna happen, right? Like there could be a huge bus accident that prevents you from, blocks up traffic for a few hours, that type of thing. But
which happens all.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just preparing, I know you don't want to play this in your head and I don't want to sound like morbid, but if situations arise, like what you are going to do as your backup plan, like say you are 3 hours late and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to miss a flight. And it's like, well, do you have the budget to rebook, another flight, that type of stuff. So kind of play those out in my head and like see how I can prepare for them. But yeah, it's tough just having that on the brain all the time. Once you get there, yeah, it's fine, but things could come up, but I guess at least you're there.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like most of the time the bad things don't happen.
Right.
Most of the time it's fine. It's just long days of travel, but there are days where the bus gets stuck in the mud and
Yeah.
it takes an hour for them to call a repair person or someone to come take the bus
Wild.
out of the mud. Or I remember once I missed my flight because I thought it was that day and it was actually the day before. It just,
Oh my
I
gosh.
know. I got there and they're like, we don't have a flight for that today. And I was like, are you sure? What are you talking about? I think I checked in
Oh man.
and I
Yeah.
rarely make those mistakes, but it happens. Maybe like
Yeah, it
just
does.
once in a blue moon. But I think why people get so scared is sometimes you go in freak out mode and you go like, what do I do? But at the end of the day, everything you can figure it out. There's always people
100%.
there to ask for help. And I think that's the thing people don't realize. So it's kind of like imagine traveling your own country and you kind of get lost. What do? You go to the gas station or somewhere and you
Mhm.
say you ask for directions, right? But
Mhm.
I think people think it's like 10 times harder when you're in a different country. Now, granted, yes, if there's a language barrier, yeah, but
Yeah.
most of the time there is someone that will come in and swoop in and actually maybe help you out. And that's why when I
Yeah.
see other travelers in the States and they look a little bit confused, I do want to help them because I'm like, oh wow, I've been there before where
Yeah.
I just want someone to point me in the right direction.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And so, we've been all around the world. There's a lot of things we've seen and a lot of things we've done. And what do you think for travel? What lessons have travel taught you?
Oh my gosh, so many. To pack lighter than the last trip, even though it never happens. I always try and then it never happens. That's definitely one. Also that because I've literally been on 2-year-long trips, like nonstop, a year long, where I moved to South America, I was backpacking around there. I moved to Australia. I was literally living there with a bank account and a cell phone and doctors, etc. That really all you have is your health and your relationships. And that everything else can be bought. It can be and your mindset, of course, but everything else can be bought or replaced or purchased wherever you are, or you can get another one. But like your physical health, your mental health, and the relationships you carry with people and your confidence, which is your mindset, that's really all you need in life, and you got to make sure that's good and secure, and it's a journey to work on it, and that's fine, but that has to be in a good place for you to go places.
Yeah. It's kind of like realizing what's important, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
Like if you lose, I know things can be expensive. Like I would be mad if I left a pair of designer eyeglasses, Bulgari, $450 for the lens and the frames. I left them.
Oh,
I only had them for 2 months and I left them in a hostel in Argentina. And I was livid. $450. And I was like, I'm never bringing my designer anything on any trip ever again because I was in a rush to get out of there. But at the same time, I'm like, that was 8 years ago at this point. Do I care? No. Now I just learned a lesson from it. I just don't bring anything designer. I don't bring designer eyeglasses when I go travel for that long.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean that stuff can be replaced. I already have another pair of designer eyeglasses. Like don't even remember the ones from that many years ago.
Yeah, I know. I feel like in the moment, trust me, like when I have a travel mishap, usually like my fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare, but it happens, and I get so mad or I get
Yeah.
so in the moment, that saying where they're like, you can only control how you react to things. In the moment, though, that's not easy to do.
It's
It's more,
not.
no, it's more of like once you're able to kind of figure out how to fix the issue and then move on, then
Mm-hmm.
and then you can get on your next train or whatever and sit there. Then you can start breathing again, being like, okay, I'm fine. I just lost $70, but I'm fine.
Right.
know?
And
Mm.
I honestly think people can react however they want to react. Like, I feel like, because I get really heated sometimes when like I've done something wrong or I've lost something, which doesn't happen often. But come on, if you lost $450 worth of eyeglasses, like, wouldn't you be pretty pissed also? Like,
You said that, I
and
was like, oh, that's a round trip flight. Oh, I got
oh,
good.
it is. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. But like, I don't know. It's hard. Like, people are going to react the way they want to react. Like, yeah, I get it. You can control the way you react, but like, I can move to the side and be angry over there and scream into the void over there. But I just tell people, like, feel the way you want to feel. If you're going to be pissed about it, that's fine. I mean, obviously don't take your anger out on others, but be mad about it. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. And I think it's very
So,
human it's kind of weird to tell people like, think positive. It's okay.
I hate that, the
And it's
toxic
like,
positivity, like,
yeah, it's like, it's not okay. Sometimes it's not.
it's not okay.
And it's very human it's human and healthy to experience emotions and to express it sometimes. I think what you said was right, where to not put it on someone else.
Yeah, as
That's
long
where
as
it
you're
gets
not
unhealthy.
harming anyone or
Exactly.
yourself, go ahead and scream that you lost the pair
Yeah,
of glasses,
exactly. Or missed your flight.
Right. Like,
Oh,
I think it's okay if like if that was a situation that's happened to someone else and they want to sulk about it for an hour, that's fine. But like
mhm.
once your hour is up, we can get back to the trip. That's fine,
This
like,
is
but
where
be
I
mad
feel
about
like,
it for an hour. That's okay.
yeah.
It's warranted.
And this is where I feel like, oh, when I think before I ever get married, I'm like, we have to travel together because it will
Yeah.
test how you guys cope, how you will deal with issues on the road,
Hmm.
um, and kind of give a glimpse of that before you get into a married life, things
Yeah.
like that, and not, and when I say travel on the road, not where it's like a comfortable trip, if that makes sense, where it's like, there are going to be challenges. There are going to be things where you might have to take a local bus because that's all that's available. But if you have
Hmm.
like kind of like a tour that's already set for you and everything, it's easy, a lot of hand holding, then I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to see a lot of those challenging moments.
Yeah.
So because I sometimes when I meet people in hostels, we'll travel the same direction. So we're like, hey, let's just split a room, or let's travel together, just because it's nice to have someone to travel with on a
Hmm.
bus or whatever. But when something goes wrong, that's when I see how they cope. And if I don't like it, then I'll be like, you know what? It was nice meeting you. And yeah, best of luck on your way. But then if you
Yeah.
see other people that are, at least for me, a bit more calm, cool, and collected, or even laugh about it, a bad
Yeah.
situation, then I'm like, okay, this is a person I want to kind of travel with on the same road. So it kind of gives a little perspective into how people are.
Hmm.
And speaking of perspective, I know that at least for me, I feel like travel, especially international travel, it creates more, I feel, how do I say this? It creates more of an open mind because I realize I'm in a bubble. I think we all are in a bubble, just different
Hmm.
types of bubbles, right? So, how like to think about it is like all our lives we've been eating one cuisine, and
Hmm.
we hear about other cuisines. Some cuisines are like, oh, don't eat that cuisine, it's dangerous. Oh, eat that one, I heard it's really good. But then all of a sudden you go and try these different cuisines and you go like, wow, there's so much more than all the stuff I've been just eating all my life.
Hmm.
So, and realizing like there's new bubbles out there, or there's more to it just makes you think about how small you are in this world.
Hmm.
How has travel been healing for you?
It's been healing in, you can take this so many different ways, which is good. I feel like it's definitely forced me to reevaluate my life at home as far as like material possessions and what I actually need in life. I think I used to be a little bit of a pack rat, not necessarily like a hoarder, but I used to be very materialistic, buying things all the time, spending my money frivolously. And when I went on that year in South America, I lived out of a small suitcase and a half backpack. And then I came back to all my stuff that was being stored in LA, and I was like, I don't even remember this stuff. So really after that, and then so many different things, like learning not to waste precious resources. Like, this is so trivial, but I used to take like 40-minute showers. I'm not even kidding. And now my showers are like 2 minutes long. Like, it's because I stayed in hostels for a year straight, learning to share with a billion other people that needed to use the shower the exact same hour that you needed it. And so, like, healing and teaching me things I look at in the same way, right? Healing I see as in maybe there were like wounds or scars or problems I didn't know that I had, right? Like having too many things, or knowing not to waste precious resources, or doing better things with my time instead of sitting under the water letting my skin get pruny for 40 minutes. Like, doing what, right? Like, it's precious time. So it's been healing in a lot of different ways, and like meeting different people, and getting a much wider perspective on the planet. Like, I'm not even kidding. I never knew so much about American politics until I left the country. I'm not even kidding. I was like, holy crap, I'm literally learning more outside of the country than I am living in America. Learning more about my own country
Yeah.
being outside of it than being in it. It's
Yeah.
wild. And people will probably listen to this and be like, oh, she needs to do more research. That's fine. Or I could just like go on a trip to Israel and see what people there have to say about us, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think what you
learning a
said
lot.
with it really is like perspective. I think that's like a big word I'm getting right now.
Mhm.
Again, like when you're away and you're able to it's kind of like what I remember this young girl telling me, it's maybe this last year, and she said, I feel like I'm pressured to travel because I see it
Mm,
everywhere
yeah.
online, you know,
That's a
and it's
problem
like,
too. That's a problem
yeah,
too. If you don't want to
right?
travel, don't travel. You don't have to, you
Yeah.
know?
And so what I told her was like, look, you know, are you starting to compare yourself with people online? But, you know, if you haven't traveled, you can give it a try. And the reason why I find it so helpful is when you are away from home, you're able to not have the influence of family and friends telling you what you should do or what they recommend you to do. You, in
Mhm.
a way, figure out what works best for you
Mhm.
and what you like and what you don't like. And it's simple as this, you know, when I travel, that's when I realized I hate hiking. Everyone's
Oh,
like, be outdoor in nature. I'm like, F this, man. This is a
but you
work.
can be outdoors in nature without having to scale mountains.
It's called the beach.
No, 100%. It's called like walking through a park or through a flat park, you know, and like
Yeah.
people who have like, I had a knee surgery recently. Like, I had mobility issues
Right. I
for
remember
a
that.
little bit after that. And so, like, not everyone has to. I know that hiking, the point is oops, excuse me. It's so funny because yeah, not everyone has to hike. Not everyone can hike.
Yeah. And so, but it was just through traveling and, you know, going on beautiful hikes in New Zealand, but
Mhm.
realizing that, look, if I don't like it in one of the most beautiful countries in the world, I'm not gonna like it anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not something I enjoy. And then in a way you kind of learn, say boundaries, but more so if someone invites you or they pressure you to do
Mhm.
it, whatever, you just go like, no, not my thing. I know it. I've tried it. Thanks for the invite, but I don't want to.
$100%.
Or you're just me. I'm like, no, I'd rather sleep in, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's like little things like that where you find what you like and what you don't like, and in a way finding your own self, you know,
Mhm.
without the influence of anyone back home.
Mhm.
Oh, that's why I told
100%.
her. And I also told her, I was like, look, when you get older, traveling is really, it's a lot tougher on your bodies. I'm starting to feel it. Like, you know, we're
Oh
both
yeah.
30s. And so I'm like, you
Definitely
know,
feel it. I definitely feel it. I just
yeah,
want to sleep like when it's time for bed. I don't want to go out to the full moon party. I just want to sleep.
I know. Back then I was like, wow, I was able to sleep on train rides at night somehow,
Crazy. Yeah.
overnight train rides, and it was okay.
Or like go
But
to bed. There was one night in Medellin, Colombia, where I slept. I'm not even kidding. I rested my eyes for 10 minutes because I was out all night. And then I went up and got on a 6-hour walking tour.
oh,
10 minutes. The tour
wow.
guide was like, thanks for being here. I'm like, I didn't want to miss it. But I could never do that now. I could never do that now.
Oh, no, not be like your body would break
Yeah.
5 minutes into the hike. Um, I also met a girl in, I think it was New Zealand, where because you meet a lot of people in hostels, and you know,
Yeah.
if they happen to be sitting nearby, you might click with them or start conversation naturally. And she was talking about how she started traveling this big trip for herself because she had like an 8-year relationship that
Tough,
just
yeah.
broke up, right? And so I think sometimes people don't realize, like, and I also met another guy in Europe. He's from Australia though, and he dated a girl for years and asked her to be propose to her, and she said no. And he's like,
Oh,
I
tough.
know, right? I remember sitting there and, I don't know, like I get a lot of stories from people when I travel and I'm like, oh my God, that's, my heart just dropped for those two people. But I think it's just
But
sometimes
you
you
know
need
what? Maybe
space.
the relationship, like maybe they needed to get out of it. Maybe it wasn't
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't heartbreaking,
Yeah. Or
we
maybe it
never
was just
know.
they, being back home in the same environment again.
Yeah.
And it can be really tough, right? And sometimes you just need kind of, in a way, it's like it's a retreat for
Mm-hmm.
them,
Mm-hmm.
a healing retreat. So, safety is obviously a
Mm-hmm.
major concern for people, even people listening in being like, how do you guys travel? Like you just mentioned you went to Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound safe, right? And especially as a female. So that's like a topic that's a question I get asked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what tips do you have for people that are exploring new destinations?
Mm. Well, I will say first and foremost, I backpacked South America through a year with minimal problems because I'm not going to lie, I look Latina. I have dark skin, dark features. So people have to do a double take and then they hear me speak Spanish and they're like, oh, she's definitely a gringa. So because I blend in physically, I will say it's a bit easier for me. Do you know what I'm saying? Um, but otherwise, other than that, I go to a lot of countries where, I could feel a little, like I want to be vigilant about my safety here. So I'd say biggest tips are, if you can, I send like 2 to 3 people either my location or my itinerary or a rough itinerary, and I make sure those 2 to 3 people are different groups of people. So one will be my cousin, one will be my podcast co-host, another will be my sister, right? Just in case something happens to one group. This sounds so extreme, but I have a lot of great safety tips. It sounds so extreme, but like you never know. And like my podcast co-host and my cousin, they've never met in my life. Right. So to have like 2 completely different people know where I am at all times, I think that's helpful. If this sounds morbid, but if I ever go missing or you ever need to look for me or if I'm on a date that's gone wrong, right? So that's big safety issue. If my gut is telling me it's something doesn't feel right, then I follow it. I
Yeah.
always follow it. I don't care if I look lame, sound lame, go to bed at 8 p.m. Like, I don't care if it just doesn't feel right. I don't do it. And I've learned that like the hard way over some years. Not necessarily the hard way. Nothing incredibly traumatic has happened, but there are things I've seen things happen to other people, or like I've had a gut feeling and maybe like went against it and the result wasn't like what I wanted, or what I thought it would be. So that I always bring a couple locks, big and small, to kind of lock my stuff. Um when I'm sitting or standing or sleeping on a bus, in an airplane, in an airport, I actually like kind of wrap or tie my bag straps around my arms or around my feet.
Mhm.
Um, you know, kind of have Google Maps downloaded for offline and making sure I'm not like looking at my phone randomly. I never, ever, ever walk with headphones in, ever. I don't care if I'm bored out of my mind for an hour. I don't. Not even one pod, especially if I'm in a place I don't know. Like when I'm back home and I know the area, I'll walk with like even one pod in, but I won't really walk with two. And I know people are like, well, what's the point? I'm like, you can wear your headphones at the gym. That's fine. But I
Yeah.
still don't always keep aware of my surroundings when I'm staying at a place. Always take a photo of the address or grab a business card of the address, because if your phone dies, your phone's dead. So that's why I always like bring chargeable battery with me
Backup
as
charger.
well. Yeah, backup charger. Like I'm heading to the Philippines. Well, by the time this releases, I will have come back to the Philippines. But I never do this, but I'm bringing 2 power banks to the Philippines because I'm going on, or I will have went on a few multi-day boat tours with no cell service. on them, and which is fine. That means I won't be using my phone, but I'll still have like my GoPro, my Insta360. I want those things to be charged, and there's a generator at night, but like, you don't know how many other people are going to be needing to charge, several
As
different
well.
devices. Yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of like, I'm aware of my surroundings. Where's the pharmacy? What's the emergency number? Who I need to call? I know it sounds like so morbid, all these safety tips, but I've learned a lot through the multiple trips I've taken throughout my life. And I've just kind of collected these tips on the way. There are some situations where I even like, I'll bring my wallet and my phone into the bathroom with me. Like if I'm at a hostel or if I'm sharing, a dorm with people. And then people will probably ask, they'll listen to this and be like, then why would you stay in a dorm with other people? I do it because I want to meet people and because it's very cost effective, right?
Yes.
But and then people, may ask like, well, if you feel sus about your stuff being out, like, why don't you change rooms? Sometimes that's not always possible. Sometimes I'm only there for 10 hours. I'm not going to ask to switch rooms if I'm literally there to sleep. Like, it's so much easier for me to just bring my phone and my passport into the bathroom with me in my little like toiletry case, for the 5 minutes that I'm brushing my teeth and taking a shower.
Yeah, I think
But
also not people listening, they might, identify with it. Like I'm more of a budget
Mhm.
traveler. And so yes, for cost effectiveness, I will stay in hostels. If there are days where I really want to treat myself, I'll stay in a single
Mhm.
room, single private room.
Yep.
And that's why when people say what's a secret for you traveling so long term, is like me personally, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of discomfort in order to be able to travel for longer. And there's other people that want comfort, but because it's a higher price, it's a different style of traveling. And so and also sometimes vacation days, they don't have enough, right?
Mhm.
And I think another misconception people have about the way we travel also is knowing, like, yes, we stay in hostels, but it doesn't mean that you have to turn yourself on, especially for any of the introverts listening in,
Right.
turn yourself on to talk to someone. There's actually
Mhm.
quite, I feel like, the opposite, where there's like a freedom to talk to whoever you want, or
Mhm.
just sit in a corner, read a book, and not because when you go to hostel, people understand that you're traveling and you're on the go. And if you want to talk, you kind of end up being in the common area, in the living room area. But if
Yeah.
you're that person in the corner reading a book, enjoying themselves in peace and silence with a cup of tea, people know to leave you alone. So I
Yeah.
think I want to kind of um talk about that misconception of like, oh, you're only there to meet people. It's overwhelming. There's too much energy going on. And
Mhm.
actually, a lot of people I meet and I travel with all along when I go on the road happen to be introverts. I don't know how I attract them, but I just do.
Yeah.
Usually they end up talking to me first, and then I'll start talking to them.
Yeah.
And there's the thing about, like, there was this German guy that I was traveling with for a while, and um, we were sitting with dinner with some other people, and then he just walked off. And back home, you can't do that without looking rude. But here he's just like, I'll be back. I just need time to recharge. And I was like, all right, see you later. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. There's so much freedom, and uh there aren't expectations placed on you when you're
Mhm.
at these places and traveling. And of course, it's kind of cool meeting like international people.
Mhm. I would say a good tip for that is also maybe if you want less chance of having to talk or socialize, book a smaller room, which are more expensive sometimes, but some hostels you can get a 20 bed dorm or a 4-bed dorm. And I've noticed the older and more mature I get, I'm definitely booking smaller dorms just because sometimes they're a bit quieter. Sometimes, not all the time, but and it's like just less people you have to deal with. So, yeah.
When you're mentioning about safety concerns and things like that, for someone that's listening in, they might feel a bit overwhelmed. I think
Yeah. I can
uh
understand.
yeah, with all those
It's
things to
very
come, right?
overwhelming at first. Like all the info I just gave, that took me years to collect, like a decade to collect. That didn't happen in one trip, you
Trial
know?
and error.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people think the worst might happen. Most of the time, honestly, I haven't had any. I think it's rare that something violent happens, right? Because you're usually in a tourist place. You're usually flying into a city where there's other travelers as well. So it's
Mhm.
usually traveler friendly. I think the thing that's really common and
Or it doesn't have to
unfortunate.
be violent either. It could be like traumatic, like losing your passport.
Oh,
Do you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like,
that's one thing I don't want stolen.
or like
But yeah,
all your accounts being drained of money type of
yeah.
stuff.
But
So,
what's I think more very realistic and common that I see
uh-huh.
is petty theft.
Yeah.
Just like, you know,
100%.
you left something out and then someone might have taken it. Or even like in Europe, you have your phone in your back pocket and
Yeah.
so it's not violent because you don't know what happens. You just walk into
It's
another
so
shop
scary,
and then all
dude.
of a sudden
Yeah.
you're like, where'd my phone go? And it's not in your pocket anymore. So it's just more like a frustrating moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's more what I've heard and seen on the road of like a lot of petty theft where you're like a major inconvenience for people. But
Yeah.
in terms of violence and, you know, a lot of people, I haven't met anyone on the road that's actually encountered like a violent encounter. Actually, a lot of times it's when they get drunk and they're like, "Oh, I don't know how I got all these bruises the next day. I fell along the way
Right.
stumbling home." So, I just want to put it out there that yes, I'm sure you know, obviously there are crimes out there and things like that, but majority of the incidences are usually when people are drunk and they scrape themselves falling over and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or a petty theft. So that's
Mhm.
something I want to hopefully ease people that when they're listening in on this podcast and they want to travel, they don't get too freaked out.
Yeah.
Any so any you know, and you know how we meet a lot of people when we travel. Do you have any juicy stories, any romantic interests?
I mean, we could do a whole other we could do a whole episode on it. I just did on you know, a friend Tiffany's podcast. She wanted to do dating abroad. So we talked for an hour on dating abroad. That's a very vague question, but yeah, I feel like I usually meet awesome guys wherever I go, and it could turn into like a friendship. It could turn into a birthday celebration down the line. It could turn into us spending a week together. It could turn into absolutely nothing. So I know, I think, but I value all kinds of relationships like friendships, connections, networking, for familial relationships, romantic relationships, that type of thing. I mean, I try to, keep in touch with people when I can. And I know not everyone's like that because some people are like, oh, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very like trivial, it's very casual. But I just literally had a guy in my DMs who I met like almost 5 years ago. And he's like, hey, how are you? Like, you look
Yeah.
great. And so it was cute. Like we were flirting a little bit. But yeah, I have lots of stories. I'm sure. I'm sure when this releases, I'll have come back from the Philippines and have stories from the last 5 weeks I was there. So
Yeah, with me, I think well, especially now because we're in our mid 30s, right? So it's when you're in hostels, I'm starting to realize this that everyone's a lot younger.
yeah. Oh
In their
yeah.
20s, mid to young
It's not
late.
even that everyone's young. It's like we're just we're just the older. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
the young people, that's where they belong is in the hostels. It's like us who it's like, wow, we're still staying at them. But
exactly. Like you guys aren't in fancy hotels. Like no, budget wise, no. But and so sometimes you know you don't know how old these people are, but some of them
right.
older than we do, and so
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, that guy's cute. But then I realized later on when I find out the conversation, I'm like, oh my gosh, you are still a student. Never mind.
Yeah, I know.
So,
They're like, oh,
and I
I'm a
think
sophomore, and I'm like, it's young.
it's it's hard to, I think, meet people and have a long-term relationship on the road, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
And
haven't done it, so
yeah,
haven't done it yet.
and that's the thing. And also I haven't met any, it's rare to meet Americans traveling. So that's, and if I
Yeah,
do, they're not in the same state. They live far away. So it's one of those things I think it'd be cool to meet someone while traveling, but it just hasn't happened or
I
the stars haven't
know. I'd
aligned.
love that. Not
Yeah.
yet, but we still have the rest of our lives,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Or sometimes you meet, like, for example, I met this Irish guy and I was like, wow, we get along. Our values are pretty aligned and stuff like that. But again, didn't live in the same country.
Yeah,
So, you
yeah,
know, just was friends and that's all that was.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Lots of stories of that too. So
Yeah. Well, um, so when you share your stories or even when you share travel and stuff like that, do you do you feel like there's an impact you've seen on other people when they hear more about your travels?
I hope so. And I hope that, people would tell me that I've impacted. Maybe there hasn't been because no one has told me no one has mentioned anything in a minute. I did have someone, come through Instagram DMs the other day and she's like, hey, I know you've been to Morocco. I just want to hear about your experiences. So that's great to know that she's watching my content and like kind of listening and remembering. Um we hope the podcast has been impactful. We've been running it for almost 4 years now, Ticket to Anywhere. And, we've had video this whole time. We've gone to podcast conferences. We've played around with the content quite a bit, have a ton of guests on, and a ton of duet episodes between my co-host and I. And I've definitely, I used to have a different mindset about this, but if I can help one person, then my job is done. So at the end of the day, that's what I take home. If I can help one person, my job is done.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, actually, a lot of times people don't come up to people and say, hey, by the way,
You're right.
that
They
episode-"
don't.
A lot of
Mhm.
people just hit listen, play, like maybe.
Yeah. And then
die.
they go, wow, that was a great episode. And then they go about their
Exactly.
day.
Yeah, exactly. It's like us. We go about, we listen to many other things, and then we go about
Yeah.
our day,
Yep.
but we don't think about taking time to go like, hey, I want to message you and let you know that what you talked about was so helpful.
Right.
And then we go like, oh my gosh, really? Yes. But I think just even, having content, or like, for example, on your podcast, just a lot of helpful tips and stuff. People will say like, oh, I'm so glad I listened to this. Now I
Yeah.
know from it just happened to come up in my life at the right time. I'm about to go on a trip, and now I'm all set, or I feel more confident to take that step and
Yeah.
take that first leap and go by myself, But
Yeah.
again, it's not one of those things where they think about telling us, or even saying like, oh, I saw your trip and inspired me to go my first trip just because I saw that you can do it,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yep. With quite a bit of planning, but sometimes I feel I'm an event manager by trade, as are you. So for us, I plan a lot. But I think one of my biggest tips, like in general for like life and travel, is that I plan a lot, but I always expect plan A, B, and C to fall through. Always, always, always. And then, all right, let's revert to plan D.
Yeah. I try.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we prefer a little bit of structure here instead of, look, I tried once in Europe winging it,
Uh-huh.
because some people are like, oh, I just wing it and just like rock up to a
Yeah, I'm not
hostel
like that.
and say like, oh, can I, do you got a room? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to wing it this one time. And when I did, it screwed me over. I remember
Oh,
walking
no.
and, I got the train in late at night, and the
Oh,
door was
yeah,
closed,
that's
and I was like, this is stupid. And then I remember thinking like, I am never going to do this again. And then
yeah.
luckily I walked to another hostel, and I was just like, please, do you have a room for the night? I totally could have just booked beforehand. I was just thinking like, you know what? This other person said like, oh, I just wing it and it works every time. And I'm like, okay. But then I learned that doesn't work for me. That's where
No.
you know what? Just have a place to stay. You can book ahead of time. It doesn't hurt,
100%. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And with a hostel, I feel like if you're booking a hostel in Europe, it's probably going to cost you what, $22. And for some reason, if your plan changes, like, okay, and then you can't stay in the hostel that night, then you're out $22. But hey, at least it's not $1,000. At
Yeah.
least it's not $100, it's $22. And then one of my other biggest tips is to always have the first night booked. That's it.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yeah.
even matter. Like, you don't even have to have the second night. Don't worry about the second. Don't worry about the third. Just have one night. That's it. And then if your plan changes, then you're out $20. And that's the biggest of your worries. Then guess what? You're in a good place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always have one night booked.
And for anyone listening in that might be, they might dream about traveling, they might feel stuck in their life or career and try figuring out how to make things work, or just feel stuck, kind of like what we were in the past, right? What message or advice do you have for them?
I would say if they're feeling stuck and they want to make a change, kind of, I used to say, just go for it, just do it. That's not possible for the majority of people. It takes some planning and articulation. And if you don't have all the answers figured out, that's fine. But I would say, think and maybe consider all possible outcomes. Maybe you can't go away for a year, but you can go away for 3 months. You can travel for 3 months, and maybe that's all you can do, but you have to be okay with that. So I think my biggest message is like being okay with different outcomes and accepting them, and thinking like, yes, you really want to go away for a year, but maybe you can't make it work out this time around. Maybe there's a sick family member, or finances won't allow it. You really need this job, or but guess what? You are blessed to be able to travel for 3 months. That is a blessing. Travel is a huge privilege, right? So I think it's looking at all the outcomes, looking at all the plans of things that could possibly happen and accepting those as well. You know, if your first plan doesn't work out for some reason.
Yeah, I feel like if you are feeling stuck, it's been a while. Feel like stuck in life or career or anything, something that's you just feel really just down. Or just someone told me they feel meh in life, like nothing is really going for them, but nothing's
Mhm.
horrible, right? And I can tell you that will build over time. So again, you can always, like what you said, Leah, start small,
Mhm.
take a local trip alone,
Yes.
and keep it simple. So this is what I mean when I say keep it simple. You, a lot of times people get overwhelmed by thinking about what am I going to do when I get there? What are things to see and do? I say book the flight. That's when it's real, when you've booked that flight, right?
Oh
And then
yeah.
book your stay. And in terms of research, I get a little lazy on this actually. So I make sure I book my flight and my accommodation. And then I ask all the questions I want or get the
Yeah.
maps I need from the receptionist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
And I
right.
would say like, and this is a little bit of our bias here because we're both like event planners, right?
Mhm.
But you can be a little bit structured, just like a
Yeah.
light structure to it. Winging it doesn't work for everyone. So again, light structure, make sure you book your flight and then book your transportation to your lodging. So it
Yes.
could be Uber.
Mhm.
Back then, man, it was more like we had to take so many like local transportation because Uber wasn't available, right? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
we're just they can charge you up the wazoo on that. So book the transport or figure out what transportation's available. Usually there's
Yep.
taxis available or Ubers to get to your place. And once you get there, you're good, you're solid. And that's all you need to focus on in the beginning. And then
100%.
as you continue, you can expand more, kind of once you get your footing, your grounding and stuff like that, then you can add on what you want. And I think having again a little bit of that structure and also being able to leave your itinerary a lot of open room for if
Mhm.
you have time to breathe, if there's a place someone invited you to go or like a really special dinner and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that'd be terrible or pretty sad when you're like, I can't go because I decided to do 5 tours like back to back,
Right.
a
Right.
little room for magic is what some people call it.
Yes. I do believe that for, I'd say, most of the time. But for those that are on a time constraint,
Oh, like 2 weeks vacation.
yeah, I get it. They plan out every hour of every day, and that's fine. So in that situation, if I only have 2 weeks, I do get sad or like irritated or irked if I'm spending an entire day planning when I could have done this at home. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm just like sitting there on the phone or on the computer all day. So if I'm under time constraint, I try to like have an idea of things
Yes.
planned because I'm like, I'm not trying to do research. Now, if I have like 4 months, I don't mind sitting a day a week and planning the next week out ahead. But yeah, sometimes it's a little different for people who have a time constraint and who can't travel as often as we do, you know?
Yeah. I think what I've heard from people who've traveled with because there's a couple different personalities when traveling, and there's the
Hmm.
ones that sadly, because America, we have very little vacation, that
Yeah.
they will fill in 20 things in one day. That when
Hmm.
they come home from their vacation, they're exhausted. And he's like, oh, you don't want to be burnt out from vacation. So I would say probably to even leave some room for some breathing room. And even when
Yes.
it's like planning for me, I plan weddings. So you do some brides and grooms, they want to do back to back things. And the ones that do, they are exhausted by the end of the night.
Yeah.
But the ones that leave little gaps, where I suggest gaps of like breathing room so
Hmm.
they can have time to spend, time with each other or time to
Hmm.
eat. Then they come back and later on they go like, oh, I really enjoyed my wedding.
Hmm.
So that's where I think it's like you don't
Yeah.
want to burn out, but
True.
there's like a fine balance, right? And that's kind
100%.
of hard to do, especially when you have only 2 weeks vacation and you're going to,
Yeah.
I don't know, Greece or somewhere special.
I've even come to like, no matter how much long or short the vacation is, I'm like, if I do one day thing and one night thing, like that's a day for me, even if it's something as simple like, oh, I went to a cute cafe for coffee and then I had a dinner at this restaurant down the road at night. Like that's a day. That's a day with plans, right? That is still a day well spent.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those
So,
things where I like, we learned that over time. When I was younger, I
mhm.
had the energy to do back-to-back things.
Yeah. And you thought you had to be doing like cool stuff all the
Yeah.
time, 24/7,
Mhm.
like bungee jumping straight to paddle boarding, straight to ATVs, right? But
Mhm.
it's not like that now.
That's so funny because when you mentioned all that, I was like, I can't do that because that's too much in my budget.
Yeah, I'm like, that would be like one tour that I found a good deal on. I
Yeah.
wouldn't do it. But just
mm,
moving physically and mentally that quick in a whole day, it's
yeah.
I
Where's
think
your
I
next
think
trip? Oh, go
oh
ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say I think America is trying to, I mean, hopefully trying to move away from that hustle culture, even on a vacation, vacation's just
Yeah.
vacation. Try
Yeah. So where are you going for
um
your next trip?
next trip. Okay, so we're filming this pre-Philippines, but it will be released and I will have done 5 weeks in the Philippines already. So when this is released at next, I will be going to doing a little staycation for a work job, contract job that I do down in like Los Angeles proper on the west side. So like Venice, Santa Monica. I always they post me up in beautiful hotels all the time. So I count it as a trip because I'm like, I'm not usually down here and I'm staying at like a hotel that I would never pay for on my own. So this is a trip. But after that, end of March, I am going to Disneyland during my sister's spring break for my niece and nephew. It's going to be their first time there. Actually, and you're the first person I'm telling this. I'm leaving Disneyland early because I've been chosen to speak at Asian Wonder Woman's first annual travel summit in Taiwan. So I've
That's
never been to Taiwan. I'm heading
awesome.
to Taiwan to speak on a panel on solo traveling, and that will be end of March. So that's all going to be in 1 week. I'm going literally from Disneyland straight to Taiwan.
That's amazing.
That's
Congrats.
wild. That's
That's
kind of
amazing.
crazy.
That's a huge summit. Huge
Thank you. I'm
conference.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
And is this Taipei?
Yes. I've
Okay.
never been.
Yeah, it's a great place for foodies, and I know you love food like I do. So,
I know.
I
I'm
think you'll enjoy
excited.
it, and it's definitely one of my favorite places for night markets
Oh,
for sure.
I'm just so stoked to
I'm
go.
excited for you. I'm excited,
Yay!
even though I've been, but it's always
I
like
know.
go
I
somewhere
know.
you're jealous, even though you're like, I know
Oh, 100%.
jealous of
Yeah.
people that travel, and people are like, Frank, you travel a lot too. I'm like, it's not
I
the
do.
same.
Well, it's funny because I remember one time my siblings went to Barcelona. They went on a trip with some of their friends, and I still to this day haven't been to Barcelona. And this was years ago when I said this, but I was like, oh, I was talking to my mom on the phone, and at the time I was literally living in Melbourne, Australia. But I was like, Mom, I'm so jealous they're going to Barcelona. She's like, you're literally living outside of the country in Australia right now. What do you mean you're jealous? And I'm like, oh no, you're right, you're right. But still, I've never been to Barcelona.
Yeah, and
So
after a
it's just
while,
funny.
when you're traveling, you kind of get so used to it.
Mhm.
And when I look up on Google Maps, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in a different country. I see it visually right now,
Yeah.
And so like I remember the German guy I was traveling with, he was saying the same. You kind of just get used to moving and seeing new things that you don't feel like, oh, it's as special as other people seeing it back home sometimes,
I
And so
know,
it's
but I don't ever want to lose that
yeah.
mentality. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's kind of like being a kid versus growing up. I don't want my brain to ever lose that like magic. So I try not to take those places for granted, and just
Yeah.
appreciate it every time.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing about traveling long term.
Hmm.
And because, with long term, like I was away when I was younger away from the States for like 2 years.
Hmm.
And the first year was traveling, working in Australia. The second year was traveling all of Asia. But
Hmm.
I realized, I remember thinking at the 6 month mark, and I didn't realize it was burnout, but I just was not invigorated anymore. And there
Yeah.
is such a thing as like after traveling for too long can be too much for people where
Hmm.
nothing seems exciting anymore. And you're like, gosh, yay, another temple, yay,
Yeah.
another museum. It's like another tree hike forest, another beach, So you kind of
Hmm.
really get so that was really interesting to learn, to like
Yeah.
kind of witness that.
I bet.
Um, how did you get into your travel podcasting? Like what prompted you to start it, to do it?
My
I know you did in the
co-host.
pandemic. Ah, okay.
My co-host prompted me to start it. I told her I had been listening to podcasts, on my
Mhm.
commute to work for the past year at the time that she asked me to start. And then one random October day, that's why it's like, well, at the time of recording, it's 4 years coming up. But she was like, hey, do you want to run the Santa Monica stairs with me this Friday at 5 a.m.? I'm like, absolutely not. And she's like, I have a business proposal for you. And I was like, okay, let's make it 6 a.m. And she's like, okay. And then we went to Good People Coffee Co. after the stairs on the west side, which is like now my favorite coffee shop in LA. It was beforehand, but now it's even better. And then we get there and she's like, do you want to start a visual podcast? And I'm like, one, absolutely. Two, what the hell is that? And she's like, it's basically just a podcast for YouTube, but then we also take the audio and slap it into an RSS feed. And I was like, oh, 100%. And she's like, we both travel very different styles. This could be great. I'm like, oh, it's going to be fantastic because we're very, very different people. And she travels with a partner and I do not. And not just that, it's just the way we pack things, the way we buy flights, the different credit cards and points we use, we go to different destinations all the time. It's she's an early riser. I go to bed late. Like it's so different. And so it makes for good, rapport on the podcast. And
Yeah.
we've been doing it for 4 years and we're not stopping anytime soon. And it's a travel essentials podcast. It's called Ticket to Anywhere.
Yeah, I love it because you talk about logistics, equipment, things to pack, how to stretch that money, any upcoming projects, and share the stories. And even like, for example, your conference. I would love to hear about that when it happens.
Oh my gosh,
so
yes.
again, like, can you tell listeners where they can find and learn more from you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's ticket number 2 anywhere. So you can find us on YouTube, but if you Google us, we don't have this website set up yet. Hopefully by the time this releases, we will. But if you Google us, we're everywhere. So Ticket to Anywhere, anywhere you can listen to podcasts, also on YouTube. And then me personally, Leah, LA in Flight. But if you go to the podcast, you'll be able to find me from there. But I'm LA, which are my initials, also the city I live in, like LA in Flight on every social media platform.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. We can talk for hours on travel, especially with the stories that we have.
Yes.
All experiences.
Thank
and
you.
This topic you and I both love. So I was looking so forward to this podcast episode. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Trang. This was so much fun.
And that is a wrap for today's episode, my friend. I hope you enjoyed listening to me chat with Leah about travel, one of our favorite hobbies and passions in life. And did you find anything helpful, useful, or insightful from her in this episode? If so, I'd love to hear about it. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button, hit that follow button right now so you don't miss out on any episodes coming up. I'd be really grateful if you also left me a review over at Apple or Spotify too, as they will help other people find my podcast. Until we meet again, my friend, always remember to shine your light brightly and to share your story, because you'll never know who it can help or inspire to create a change in their own world. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.